Welcome to my channel, my name's Chance, and it's time to talk about some board games. Now, unfortunately I've been sick all week and my voice is still a little bit off, but no worries. I got my tea over here and my beautiful Great Lakes Relay mug. That's a fantastic team race across the state of Michigan, but that's a little besides the point, because today I gotta continue my top 100 list. On the docket for this video is going to be numbers 70 to 61. And you know what? Let's just dive right into this, start things off strong with my number 70 board game, and that is going to be Mission Red Planet. So this is a relatively new one in my collection because this is the reprint. It just came out in the last couple of months, but I have managed to get this played a couple times and I am absolutely loving this game. So it is a 2 to 6 player area majority game. Now I've only played it at 4 and 5, but I think I would have no issue playing this at 6 because of the simultaneous action selection. So what are you trying to do this game? Well, like I said, area majority. Basically, you're trying to get your astronauts into these landing pods. These landing pods, they'll refresh every time they basically launch, and they'll have a specific destination that they're going to go to out on Mars or the moon Phobos. And basically, a lot of your cards are just going to be adding those astronauts to those landing pods as soon as one is full, because there's a certain capacity for each one. It's going to launch. So you're basically just competing for seats against your fellow players. But the way the game works is that for every round of the game, you are going to select one card from your hand, and everyone has the same set of 9 cards, so you all have the same actions that you get to select from, and you're going to simultaneously choose one, place it face down on the table. Once everyone's ready, start player is going to start a countdown. They're going to be like 9, 8, 7, and then as soon as your number is called, you're going to reveal your card and take that action. So, like I said, most of these actions are going to be adding your astronauts to those docked ships, but then a lot of your cards are going to have some other weird, wacky powers associated with them. Things like the robot, which allows you to just convert someone else's astronaut into your astronaut. Like, basically, if you have an astronaut in the same area as someone, you get to infect them with a little mind virus and take them over. You have the saboteur, which you get to, sure, add your astronauts to a docked ship, but you also get to blow up another docked ship. So you get to just make those astronauts, they get lost in space, the ones that were on that ship. Then you have the pilot. This one allows you to, once again, add astronauts to a docked ship, but you can also change the destination of a ship that is either launched or docked. So if someone's like, oh, you know what, I got all these astronauts and they're going to Phobos, which is where I want to be, you can play the pilot and be like, you're going to Citra Major now instead of Phobos. And the player's like, I don't want to go to Citra Major. Well, not too bad. That's where your launch pod has been reprogrammed to land. So that's where you're going. Yeah, so I really enjoy just that simultaneous action selection, trying to judge what other players are going to try to do. So you are trying to make the best judgment for yourself on what you need to do to get things to work out in your favor. And the ordering of these cards, because you're doing that countdown, I find that like a lot of the cards that are those lower numbers they might be more powerful, but they can be harder to trigger at the time that you want, because like that saboteur is awesome if you can blow up a docked ship. But the problem is if all the ships fill up before your saboteur card triggers, which I think the saboteur is like a 4 or something, so it's pretty late in the sequence, and it's possible that all the ships will launch before you even get to use that ability. So you have to time the selection of your cards according to what the other players are trying to achieve and what they're trying to accomplish. And the way that this narrows down, you can kind of hone in on what your strategy should be, is the fact that every card that you play is going to stay on the table. So everyone's going to know what cards you played and what cards are left in your hand. Because you have those narrowing options, people can see like, oh, you played that card, and that card. So now you have the saboteur and the pilot left, which means you're probably going to do something to one of the ships. So you're constantly trying to take in that information to judge what other players are trying to achieve, so you can make the best selection for yourself. And I love that type of player interaction. I love it when a game makes you interested in what other players are trying to do. And then this has the Concordia style hand management, although Mission Red Planet I think came out like 8 years before Concordia, so I should call it the Concordia has the Mission Planet style. But whatever. If you know of what game pioneered this system, I would love to know it, because I absolutely love this style of hand management. But moving on, it has that style where you have this one card that's going to be your refresh card. Basically, it's the number 9. When you play it, you still get to add an astronaut out to one of those dock ships, but then you get to retrieve all of your specialist cards. So all the cards that you played back in your hand, so you get access to all your actions again for the future rounds. And yeah, that is just a style of gameplay that I really enjoy. I love the simplicity of this game, just how easy it is to teach and how easy it is to table. And then also there's some mission cards in there that'll change up kind of your strategy game to game, game, so you get a little bit of variability with those mission cards. And yeah, it's just a nice streamlined area majority game that plays at very well high player counts. So I'm excited to get this one to the table more. I did talk about this in another video that I'll link to above. The only issue I have with it is the fact that there are some typos on the cards, which I find super annoying, but the symbols are really clean and really easy to follow, so easy to go over. It's just like, I feel like on the 3rd edition of this game or whatever it is, that shouldn't exist at this point. But moving on. Okay, so let's be done with Mission Red Planet and let's move on to my number 69 game. And that is going to be Ark Nova. Whew, this has fallen from grace, to be honest. Ark Nova has been my number 1 game in the past. Like, I would say 2 years ago, Ark Nova, number 1 by a long shot. I played this one, well, I would say this was really my initiation into hobby board gaming. Now, I've played board games throughout my life. Just various peaks and valleys throughout my life of interaction with board games. But towards the end of the pandemic, I decided to pick up Ark Nova and play it solo, and I just fell in love with the game. And then I played it a ton on BGA. I played it a few times in person with the actual physical edition. And then, yeah, I probably played it 100 or so times on BGA at least. And I would say BGA probably plays a role in the fact that this one never hits the table for me anymore, which I kind of want to make a video about that because I think playing things on BGA can kind of ruin the experience. But moving on from there. Ark Nova, I have so many good things to say about it because it does kind of have this place in my board gaming history. And I just love the melding of the mechanics in Ark Nova. I love that card management system where as you use cards, you're going to be cycling cards up and getting them into more powerful positions. You're trying to time your actions to take those more powerful actions. You're also managing this hex-based polyomino grid along with, you're basically trying to get those enclosures ready to play those animals from your hand into your tableau, and then you have the sponsor cards, which give you a little bit of an engine building aspect that you're trying to build around, and yeah, the card market, and then managing your zoo's popularity versus that conservation status to get those victory point trackers to cross. Like, everything in it just melds together so nicely. I think it is just a phenomenally well-designed game. But it is one that, like I said, I have not been playing this recently, so it is dropping on my list. I expect this one to kind of leave my top 100 because it hasn't hit the table for me in over a year, I would say. And it's really just because that it's not the type of interaction I'm looking for in a game anymore. It's definitely more multiplayer solitaire than a lot of the games that are going to be higher on my list. Basically, if I'm getting together with friends, I like to have something that's a little more rambunctious, a little bit more interactive, and a little bit more talking at the table, instead of heads down. I'm not a big fan of the heads down experience with like 3 other people. So that's why Ark Nova is just it's just dropping off my list, but it is still a fantastic game. Okay, let's move on to number 68, and that is going to be one to my left here, and that is Manhattan Project Energy Empire. Now, talking about, not as heads down as Ark Nova. Now, I love this is a worker placement game. It's a tableau building, engine builder, worker placement, dice game. Yeah, has a bunch of things going on with it, and I absolutely love it. So first up, that worker placement mechanic, and I just have to call out that this is Luke Laurie and Tom Jolly. We're going to see another game from them in the future. We're actually going to see more games from Luke Laurie in the future as well. So yeah, I love this duo. I love the way they do worker placement. So in this one, you have the workers, and you still have the blocking. You're going to be blocking out spots, but it's not like straight up blocking, because essentially as long as someone spends more resources than you, so it's kind of like you have workers and energy, and you're going to put this stack down. So one worker counts as a stack. You can put one worker down in a space, and if you get to do that action. Now, if someone else wants to do that one, it's not totally blocked for them. They just have to place one worker plus at least one energy. So they have to make a stack of 2, basically. So to compete with your stack of 1. And if they play that stack of 2, great, they get to take that action. Now, does another player want to take that action? Oh, now they got to spend 2 energy plus a worker. Oh, make a stack of 3. That's becoming a little costly. That's like, oh man, that action actually worth it to actually spend those 3 tokens to go to that spot? So I love the fact that, like in worker placement, that's one of the things I enjoy about it, is that blocking aspect, but sometimes they can feel a little harsh because someone can be like, that was, like, you just took the one spot I needed to do the one thing that I had to do, and now my turn is like ruined. I can't do anything that I want to do on this turn. But Energy Empire gets around that by saying, you're never totally blocked out. You just spend a little bit more. Do you want to spend a little bit more? That's up to you. Good luck. Next up is the recall part of the worker placement, because I like this once again. Luke Laurie, this is in like all of his games. He has the recall aspect of the worker placement where you're gonna take that one turn where it's kind of like the refresh, but Luke Laurie does such a good job of turning that refresh turn into an important action and a pacing mechanic in the game, because you're going to be recalling your workers, but you're also going to be rolling these dice to generate energy. Those dice represent the power plants that you build. Basically, you can build like hydro or solar or coal or nuclear, and those various power plants will produce different amounts of energy. And yeah, maybe you're like, oh, I want to go all in on nuclear because I want to get all the energy I can. Great, you have higher odds of producing more energy. Now, this is the part that people probably aren't going to mesh with as much, because some people like their Euros to be very deterministic with the resource generation and stuff. And this is the part where, yeah, you definitely have some randomness in how much energy you're going to produce during that recall action. I actually love it because it makes the game very tactical. You have to like plan things out. You can't just strictly plan things out. You roll those dice, and you're like, oh, I only got 3 energy this turn. You roll them next turn, and you're like, oh, I got 6. And then have to be a little more tactical and with your strategy of how to do things. But you're going to roll those dice, and then essentially, depending on that dice roll, you're probably going to generate pollution. So if you have nuclear, you might generate nuclear pollution. You have on your player board a little spatial puzzle that you're also working on, where you're going to be placing those pollution tokens, and then you can try to clean them up if you want, because essentially if you have pollution, you're going to be reducing your scoring for polluting your environment. But maybe you're like, well, I want my nation to be successful, so I need more power plants. So I have to deal with I need pollution because I need more power. And then, so I love that it has this trade-off between the pollution and the power production. Like, it meshes so well in this game that I think they did a fantastic job with the theming of this one. Then I didn't even call out like the tableau building and the fact that when you go to like a certain area of the board, you can activate all buildings on the matching color. So you have this tableau builder, plus you're building up your engine and maybe going heavy on one area, like the government area or the commerce area, and just hitting that area hard to try to trigger your engine more often. So yeah, there are a lot of really good things in this. And I played this at 4 and 5 players, and I had a great time with it, which I would say for a slightly heavier resource management games, sometimes they can feel like they're going to be slow and bogged down, but I feel like this one plays pretty snappy and pretty quickly for being that type of kind of resource management game. So yeah, that is my number 68, Energy Empire. I have an expansion coming for this. I'm super excited about it, so you're probably going to hear more about this one in the future. All right, let's move on to my number 67. Now, this one is a surprise for me because this is Star Wars Battle of Hoth. If you would have asked me, is this game in my top 100 after playing it, I would have been like, no, that's not in my top 100. I don't know, why would that be in my top 100? But when I was doing my rankings, I kept seeing it, and I was like, yeah, I would rather play that game. And it really just comes down to that this is a fantastic, like, beer and pretzels game to me. Like, there is some strategy, like you have that hand management, you have on the board, you have a left flank, a center, and a right flank, and your cards are basically going to activate different units in the different flank zones, and you have to manage your cards and try to move your units into the right flank zone so you can activate the most units possible on your turn. Basically, yeah, it has a really good management puzzle with that, managing your unit's location, plus like the terrain pieces that you're going to be trying to move around. So yeah, there's a good amount to think about in this game, which I really appreciate that, especially in a game that can play in about, plays in 30 minutes or less. It's pretty easy to set up, and a full head-to-head experience, 2-player dueling game in that under 30 minutes is just fantastic. Now, the part that some people might not enjoy, but this is where I say, yeah, it has some strategy, but it's definitely like a beer and pretzels game to me, is the dice rolling, because the dice rolling can be a bit swingy. It's kind of like playing Risk, you know? You're gonna go out, you're gonna move your units, then you're gonna be like, I attack this one, you're gonna roll those dice, and then if you're me, you're gonna be like, I hit nothing. And then the other player is going to be like, okay, I'm going to take my turn, and I plan nothing and roll my dice. Hey, I got 3 hits. And I'm like, God, why? Why do I try? But it is something that I still really, really enjoy. I grew up playing Risk. Like, Risk was my go-to board game as a kid. Risk is a very flawed game, but I do still have those memories of going out, rolling those dice, pushing my luck, trying to attack people and eliminate those units. And Battle of Hoth, it brings that out for me. I would say Battle of Hoth, nowhere near as flawed as Risk. It definitely still has that strategy, but it has that dice-chucking entertainment that I enjoy in a board game. So, yeah, I am excited to play this one more. I'm excited to go through that scenario book, and we will probably be hearing more about Battle of Hoth in the future as well. Okay, on to my number 66, and that is going to be a War of Whispers. Now, a War of Whispers is, I also got the expansion for this one. This is kind of like Manhattan Project Energy Empire. I have not played the expansion yet, but I'm very excited to get it to the table. But War of Whispers is a area control game, but essentially the faction that you are influenced with or aligned with is going to be hidden from the other players. So at the beginning of the game, you're going to end up with you have a random alignment of like a rating for the 5 factions that are on the board. So you're going to have from first to last, basically you want the token that you have in first to have control of the most cities, and you want the token you have in last to have control of like no cities, because they're going to score you negative points. And then there's a bit of a sliding scale, so the faction first is going to score you like, I don't know, 3 points per city, and then the faction second is going to score you 2 points per city, and so on down the scale. So yeah, you are just trying to line yourself with the faction that is going to be coming out on top on this battle. You're basically like the secret society pulling the strings behind the throne or whatever, right? So that's the idea of a War of Whispers. And first up, I love this idea, and the execution is fantastic in this game, because I love the turns where, so first up, you don't know what other people's alliances are in the beginning of the game. And also I use an app for doing the alliances, or it's like a web app. I'll post a link to it below. It's super helpful if you're playing the game, but it allows you to set the game up in some different configurations. And the main way that I think I've seen people play it is where you guarantee that no one has their top and bottom faction aligned, because that can kind of skew the game towards one faction very early on. So I think it's important to do that. Now in the expansion, they do add some new cards for setup, which kind of prevent that type of situation from happening. So I do think that there are some setup hiccups in there, but either the web app or the new cards in the expansion should fix that. But yeah, so you're going to be like, oh, I want that faction to win, I want this faction to lose. But for each round, you're going to be placing out agents on the board, which are going out to council seats. Those council seats are going to do some very simple things, like maybe add units to the board, or move units on the board, or basically trigger battles on the board by moving units. And you might do things like, oh, I'm going to take that council seat so I can actually trigger a battle here and make this person lose. It's like you want them to lose to weaken them. And then you're like, well, if I take the council seat for the one I want to win, I can then come in and sweep out that side and kind of move them in. But you're competing with the other players. Like the other players might be like, well, I'm going to take the council seat of this one. And you're looking at the board and you're like, oh, those are the guys I want to win. What are you going to do to them? Don't make them fail. Like, I hope you do something good. So you're competing with other people to get these factions to win or lose. And then over the course of the game, there's going to be the situations where you're like, wow, those guys are clearly doing bad. And you have the option at the end of every round to reveal 2 of your tokens and to swap them on your board. So you can be like, oh, my faction is screwed for this game. I'm going to reveal, and we're going to swap them down because they're no longer scoring any points. Now you've improved your scoring possibility, because you're like, okay, well, I'm out of that terrible situation, but you've now revealed what you're trying to do to the other players. So some players are going to be like, oh, well, you're clearly trying to do this, so I'm going to stop you from doing that. Another player at the other table is like, hey, that's my faction. We're kind of on a team right now. They're not going to tell you that because they probably don't want to reveal their token, but that's what's going to happen during the game. But overall, I really enjoy this one. I'm very excited to play the expansion. They did some rebalancing in the expansion too, so I'm excited to get that to the table. But yeah, War of Whispers I think is a really interesting game. I just like this idea of not controlling a single faction and just influencing things and pulling those strings and seeing how things fall out or play out. Okay, let's move on to my number 65, and that is going to be Orléans. So Orléans is a game that has got a lot of praise, and I definitely understand why. It is a just fantastic bag builder. I really enjoy it. It's not like Quacks. If you played Quacks, it is not a push your luck bag builder. It is more like the best analog is a deck builder. It is a deck builder, except with a bag. That's the best way to describe this. But yeah, so on your turn, basically you're going to be drawing a certain number of tokens from the bag, which is awesome because you can basically trigger things to change the number of tokens you draw for a round by going for certain actions. But so let's get ahead of myself. So you're going to draw those tokens, you're going to put them in a little staging area, then you're going to assign them to the various action areas on the board. So basically you have like these action areas. It's going to be like, yeah, go to the farmer, or go to the wall for the soldier or something, or go out into the boatsman, or yeah, so just various action spots that you're going to be slotting these these citizens in to take certain actions on your board. those, once you have those slotted in, you're just going to go in turn order, and players are going to take actions for as long as they can or as long as they want to until everyone is out of actions to do for the round. And those actions tend to be pretty basic things. It's like move up this track, move up this track, move up that track. Generally, when you move up that track, like move up the farm track, you're going to add another farmer to your bag. So basically, that's the bag building aspect of it. You're going to be adding these other citizens to your bag over the course of the game, which is going to be changing how you can play the game a little bit. So like I said, adding that soldier to the bag, that's going to change how many tokens or how many chips you get to draw from your bag each round. So maybe you start at drawing 4 and then you get a soldier and now you get to draw 5. Hey, you might be able to take more actions now, so that's great. Other ones are, yeah, there's going to be some bonuses as you move up the other tracks and gain those other chips to put in your bag. And then there's going to be one that I think you can get a technology wheel, and that'll allow you to put a permanent upgrade on your board. So you get to do a little bit of a player board modification by adding on that gear, that technology tile. So that way you reduce the number of citizens required to actually trigger that action. So I really like just the mechanics of drawing those tokens from the bag, assigning to the actions that you want, trying to go down whatever path you're trying to pursue for those victory points. Then there's a couple other aspects in here, like you have like the boatsman and totally forget the other one, but essentially you're going to be moving around this map with your little tradesman dude, and he's going to be going around and building up his trade halls and collecting some resources along the way. And basically, this is another way that you can score points, that you can build up those trade halls and get these multipliers as you develop out your board or whatever, and essentially just go towards whatever victory point strategy you're trying to maximize for yourself. And I just love that deck building along with that action selection system. It's very, very satisfying. That's the only way I can describe it, is that it is very engaging and very satisfying puzzle to do. And I also love that there's a little sideboard that you can kind of assign some of your citizens to. It's a bit of a race to do these things against the other players. Like you get these little bonuses, and then if you manage to complete one of those sections of that sideboard, you get an extra bonus. You get the special citizen, which becomes another multiplier for you. It's like an elite citizen that you get. But yeah, so Orléans, fantastic bag builder. I'm excited to play this one more. I just picked up some of the promo tiles that were on sale on the BGG store, so I'm excited to try those out as well, because you do get to kind of modify your own player board by adding in these buildings as you play the game to give you different actions or more powerful actions throughout the course of the game. So yeah, that is Orléans. Moving on to my number 64, and this is going to be Revive. Ooh, Revive. This is one that I can see moving up my list a lot. Basically, this combines a lot of feelings that I get from other games. I'm not going to say, like, the mechanics in itself, they're all pretty unique, but I would say I get a lot of vibes from other games. Like, I get a little bit of vibes from Tribes of the Wind with kind of the point salady nature of it, of trying to build things out, and just everything is getting you points towards the victory or towards the end game. And also a little bit of the hand management system. Now, Tribes of the Wind has hand management, and this one has a little hand management. But maybe I get a little more feelings of like that Concordia style hand management in Revive, because you're going to be playing these cards out to your board, and then you're going to take I think a hibernation phase, which is then going to refresh your cards. But unlike Concordia, you have a bit of a two-stage process. Instead of just getting all your cards back, you're actually going to take the cards that you have in hibernation, and then you're going to take those and add those to your available cards. Then the cards that you played the last round are going to go into that hibernation. So you kind of have like this two-stage process before you can get all the cards back in your hand. So that right there, like I said, that kind of card management system, I really, really enjoy in games. Now, the other parts of it are going to be things like cryo, that I'm going to talk about. Spoiler, I'm going to talk about cryo later. But you have the cryo where you're going to be slotting in some of these resource generators, and that's going to be doing some kind of custom modification to your player board to create your own little economy. And I get a little bit of Gaia project from going out and trying to build in certain places before other players, trying to capture the more valuable places on the board before other players can build there. And yeah, so I get a lot of just vibes from a lot of these other games that are in my top 100 that are kind of combining into this like super game called Revive. So I am super excited to kind of continue playing Revive. I love that card system. I love the fact that those cards they have a certain orientation to them, and you have to play them in that orientation on your player board. You only do one half of that card system, and then as you go out and collect those other cards, you're trying to get those to synergize with the current cards you're building off of. Like, just so many good things about this game. It is a bit of a point salady game, so that's how I'm going to describe it. it, but I do really enjoy that kind of everything you do feels satisfying and feels like you're moving forward in the game. So I'm super excited to get back to Revive. I feel like this one's going to move up on my list as I play it more. But I've seen other reviewers talk a lot about this game and give it a lot of praise. And once again, this is one of those games where I'm like, yep, 100% agree. Very well designed game. Let's change things up with my number 23 game, and that is going to be The King is Dead. Oh, okay. This is a good 2-player game, an interesting 4-player game, a phenomenal 3-player game. Like, oh man. So this is my second Pierre Sylvester game that I've talked about in my top 100. I think I just recently talked about Polynesia, and his games, they kind of break my brain. Like, just, yeah, just the thinking I have to put into Pierre Sylvester's games, like, it's so much work. But some games I absolutely hate that. In Pierre Sylvester's games, I think it's phenomenal. So The King is Dead is an area control game where you are not necessarily allied with any one faction. You're going to be building up that allegiance over the course of the game. It's kind of like War of Whispers in a way where you don't have a defined allegiance and no one, but yeah, and unlike War of Whispers, your allies are going to be visible to the players as you play the game. So it's an area control game where you're going to be playing 8 rounds. Every round, one region is going to process, and whichever faction has control is going to place a control token. Then you're going to move on to the next area. If there's a tie in that area, you're actually going to place out an instability token. We're going to come back to the instability tokens. But players will have a hand of 8 cards, and on your turn, you have the option to either pass or play a card. Now, what's interesting about this game is that you only have those 8 cards. Those are all the actions you get to take for the entire game. So on your turn, pass or play a card. That means you can play 0 cards in a round, or you can play 4 cards in a round. That's up to you. Depends on how much you want to invest into a certain round or not. And this creates a super interesting dynamic in this game. And these cards are very simple. So it's usually like add cubes to the board, swap cubes on the board, add more cubes to the board, like very easy actions to understand. But the crux of this is that every time you play a card, you then have to remove 1 cube from the board, your choice, whatever cube you want, and you're going to add that to your council, which is one of those factions that you're allying yourself with. So let's say you want the Scots to win or whatever. Those are going to be the blue cubes. And you're like, okay, I play this card, I'm gonna swap some cubes around, and then I'm gonna take this blue cube over here, add them to my council. Because you know what? I want them to win. I want the blue cubes to win. I'm going to ally myself with them. And then you look at the board and you're like, wait, I just made them weaker by taking that cube off the board. That's not good. I don't know if they're going to win anymore because I took that cube off the board. This math doesn't work. Doesn't make any sense. So you have to do that for every card you play. So you are constantly trying to figure out how do you gain an ally without weakening their position too much so your opponents can take advantage of that new weakened position that you just created on that board after playing that card? Can you set things up multiple rounds in advance? Maybe trick your opponents. Maybe the region that's processing, you do something and players are like, that doesn't seem to affect me. But you set up for 1 or 2 turns later to get the region coming up in 2 or 3 turns to go in your favor. So, oh man, there's so much that can go into this game of just trying to figure out how to plan things out to work in your favor 1, 2, 3 rounds in advance by playing that one card and saving those cards until you absolutely need them. Because you run into those situations where maybe you get to that point where you're like, well, I definitely need blue to win this region. So, I'm going to play a card, and okay, I now got the blue cubes in there. This looks good. Okay. Then you go around the table, another player plays a card, and they screw it up, and you're like, okay, whatever. I'll spend 1 more card in this round. That's fine. Okay, blue's winning again. We're good. No one else is going to waste a card on this. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And someone plays a card on it, and they take it back, and it gets back to you, and you're like, oh no, I spent 2 cards on this zone. I can't pass it. I can't pass. Like I'm already invested. I got the sunk cost fallacy in. I gotta play another card. So you just go back and forth, and now you're like, do you play 3 cards in 1 round? 3 cards in 1 round out of 8? Out of the 8 cards that you have in your hand? Oh, that hurts. Yeah. King is Dead is phenomenal. It is just a very crunchy game. I think you're going to run into, I would say there's probably 2 extremes on this game. It's either someone's going to play it and they're going to be like, never bring that game out again. I do not want to touch that ever again. And you're going to be at the other end where people are going to be like, this is stuck in my head. I want to play this over and over again. I want to understand the math behind this game. I want to figure out how to win this. I don't understand. And I'm in that category of I'm just like, I don't understand this. I want to understand it, but I don't understand it. So I want to keep playing this until I understand it. So yeah, King is Dead. That's why it's at my number 63. All right, moving on to number 62, and this is a game that's unfortunately out of print, but pretty easy to get on the secondary market, pretty cheap, and this is Godspeed. Godspeed was a bit of a surprise hit for me because I read the rulebook, I tried to get it tabled a few times and I just never managed to, and I almost sold it, and then I finally was just like, well, I'm just gonna get it played and see if I like it. And oh man, I'm so glad I did not sell this game. I absolutely loved it. This is another worker placement game, and that leans into that blocking aspect. Like it leans heavily into that blocking aspect. And this really leads into that interaction, kind of like I talked about with Mission Red Planet, where you're trying to judge what other people are trying to achieve so you don't get screwed in your turn. You're trying to judge and see, like, what do they need? What workers do they have? Because you all have the same workers, but each worker can only go to a specific spot on the board. And there are going to be basically two things that happen before you get to the work placement phase that are going to whittle down your pool of workers. So you have this event phase where essentially it tells you, it specifies a worker and it says if everyone commits that worker, then essentially you all get a bonus. If not whoever doesn't commit will get some sort of minus point or whatever. But that also means that if everyone does it, you've all just locked up the same worker. Like maybe you've all locked up your engineer. And it's like, okay, no one has an engineer now. So now we're all competing over one less spot because no one can go to that spot and we're all competing over the other spots. And now it's like, okay, that's not the worst, but now you're in the second phase, and this is a supply phase. And this is where you add in a bidding aspect of it. You're actually going to bid some of your workers, possibly some resources, to try to gain the better supplies during this one. And also the first player token is taken during this round. So bidding can be critical to the game. I would say the first 2 or 3 rounds, bidding, we were a little hesitant. We didn't really understand it too much. But oh man, bidding got tense once we got into rounds like 4 and 5. And the game plays over 10 rounds. So it escalated quickly on that bidding mechanic. And now the part of this is that your workers have different values, so you may want to bid like your higher value workers, but if other people bid their higher value workers, that's usually going to be the same workers, so you could be blocking each other, or you could be competing more for those spaces with that bidding phase. Like if you both bid your ambassador, which is like the number 7 token, and that's worth 7 value during the bidding phase, now you're both like, oh, so we're not going to the ambassador spot, so now we're competing over these like 3 spots on the board. That's gonna be a problem, I think. So now that space got tighter, and that first player token is so important because that's the only way to guarantee that you get to take the action that you want to take during the round. So yeah, and all the actions in the game are pretty simple. Everything is very straightforward. It's a pretty easy resource management game. There is some... It feels a little overdeveloped in some areas because there's a little bit of confusion with learning the game. I feel like it was harder to learn than it should have been. I don't know why. But overall, I feel like the game is pretty simple to understand and pretty straightforward. But that worker placement phase, with that blocking action, with just trying to guarantee yourself the flexibility during that worker placement, it's such a good interaction in the game. That yeah, Godspeed it landed for me. I'm super excited to play it more and just have that tight worker placement competition. And now, last but not least for this video is going to be my number 61, which is the one to my left here that I haven't touched yet, and that is Clank Catacombs. So Clank Catacombs is a deck builder. Now, if you watch my channel at all, you know I've complained a bit about deck builders. I'm not a huge fan of pure deck builder games like Dominion. Man, look. I don't hate this game. No matter what Josh says, I don't hate this game, okay? Dominion is a good game. It's just one that I don't really enjoy playing all that much. I don't find it to have enough variability in it to bring me back. And yeah, it's just that straight deck builder, that point race, it just doesn't do it for me. But games like Clank, and we're going to talk about some other games in the future because there are deck builders in my list, games like Clank that add in a central board that has some player interaction on it, that is what I need, and that's what I want in a deck builder. That's what brings me back to this deck builder. And overall, this has a pretty simple rule set. It's a very straightforward deck builder. You're really just collecting like 3 resources in it. You're either getting boots, swords, which are attack, or skill points, which allow you to purchase from the market or whatever. And your goal is to move through these catacombs. And what's really cool about this one is that it's a very dynamic board. So as you move to the edge of a tile, you're actually going to reveal a new tile. You get to rotate it and place it down how you want. And you're going to be going through those catacombs, trying to collect basically victory points in there, and eventually collect an artifact, which is going to be like the big victory points, and then try to travel back to home base. Now, the thing that's going to be pushing you on that time is going to be generating Clank, because you're essentially going into the dragon's lair and stealing from the dragon's hoard, right? So as you go through these dungeons, you're going to be making some noise and generating that Clank, which are going to be these cubes that will go into this this bag it's like the dragon bag. And at certain points in the game, as you trigger those dragon attacks, you're going to be drawing cubes from that bag. And essentially, if your cubes get drawn, they get thrown on that health tracker for your character. And you don't want to be in the bad area of the game when you die, basically. Well, I guess you get knocked out. The game doesn't kill you, it just knocks you out most of the time. So, but you want to be back in home base to score the most victory points. Now, there is a safe zone, so you don't have to make it back to the final spot, but if you get back to the final spot, you get like a bonus 20 points, which is huge in the game. So yeah, you're being pressured to first move out and dive deeper into the dungeon to get the more valuable artifact. But then as the game ramps up and you start generating more and more Clank and you start triggering more and more dragon attacks and drawing more Clank from that bag, you're being asked to, hey, now you need to book it and get back, okay? So I really like the dynamic here. I like the choices that you get during the game. Like, I feel like that's one of the issues I have with just pure deck builders, is that the choices feel very limiting, whereas when you add something like a central board with a movement component, that's where I feel like you have a little bit more freedom when you play out your cards and what you're going to do with your actions. And I also love the fact that like there are going to be enemies that pop up in that market row, and you actually use the swords to attack those enemies on the market row to clear them out. And I like the dynamics of that. The gameplay of that is just very enjoyable to me, and it's a very solid deck builder. So yeah, Clank Catacombs, that is my number 61. And that is going to do it for today's video. That is my number 70 to 61 today. Let me know if you have any thoughts on these games, or if you think, based on this, there are some other games that I might like, and maybe those will be showing up in my future videos here. But that's going to do it for today. Thank you for watching, and thank you for spending your time with me, and I will talk to you next time.